Alec Baldwin goes to court. Boeing pleads guilty, and the Democratic Party is at war with itself. It's nice to see a war the military-industrial complex isn't profiting off of. Then more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. I think we should start off on a light topic. Given how tense and divided the country is right now, it'd be nice to... Okay, it's about abortion. We're starting off with abortion. The RNC adopted a party platform in line with Donald Trump's that doesn't call for a national abortion ban. I can't tell if adopting is the least or most appropriate word to use in their stance on abortion. This is the first time in 40 years such a ban has been omitted from the platform. Trump had previously indicated he would support a 15-week federal abortion ban. But since Roe v. Wade was overturned, abortion has become a losing issue for Republicans in several elections, especially in the 2022 midterm elections when a projected red wave turned into more of a red drizzle. Boeing has agreed to plead guilty to a criminal fraud charge connected with two fatal 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019. Wait, a shady corporation with a long history of valuing profit over people is actually going to face consequences for its actions? Maybe America is a country run by the people, for the people after all. And we're not just an oligarchy disguised as a democracy like so many suspect. This is proof of that because Boeing will be forced to pay up to $487 million in fines and $455 million over 3 years to increase safety compliance as opposed to the almost $25 billion that families of the crash victims wanted them to pay. It goes without saying that the families of the Boeing crash victims oppose this plea deal and demand justice. Well, I don't want to end this segment on a dour note, so I'll just say I have faith justice can still be attained because this is America. No matter your race, gender, sexuality, or the nationality of your family members, you can obtain justice, assuming you're rich and connected enough. That's the American way. American the country, not American the airline. I don't even want to know what they're getting away with secretly. And after the break, Vice President Trump. Welcome back. Alec Baldwin appeared in court as jury selection began in his manslaughter case. If convicted, Baldwin could face up to 18 months in prison. If this happens, many wonder who will play Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live, which shows just how few people still actually watch SNL since James Austin Johnson has been portraying Trump since, I don't know, I also don't watch SNL. President Biden hosted the annual NATO summit in Washington, D.C. His goals were to unite the alliance behind Ukraine and also prove he's still up to the task of being a leader, which he fumbled maybe just a bit when this happened.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Awkward. Now, to be fair, President Biden said many things at the conference that were clear and meaningful, but they didn't fit nicely into a soundbite. And everyone knows that in an election year, soundbites are what really matter. And speaking of soundbites, the NATO conference was followed by a closely watched solo press conference with President Biden, where he was able to again answer questions in detail, especially regarding foreign policy. But he also gaffed again.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Leading to mixed reactions from Democratic Party leaders. The next month leading up to the Democratic National Convention is going to be interesting. Biden's, everything is a growing source of concern for Democrats. Even longtime Democratic donor and friend to Biden, Hollywood A-lister George Clooney, says it's time for Biden to step down. And if anyone would know the importance of walking away from an important role in protecting the public, it's the worst Batman. It doesn't help that visitor logs revealed an expert on Parkinson's disease visited the White House 8 times over the last 8 months, causing many to immediately assume that the president might be suffering from the disease. The White House denies this.
Has the president been treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No. So those are the things that I can give you full-blown answers on.
Oof. Maybe when talking about diseases, don't use the term full-blown. That's like telling someone who just went in for an HIV test to think positive. Now, just because a Parkinson's expert was at the White House doesn't mean they were there specifically to see Biden. But the fact that that's what everyone assumes is a bit of a problem of its own. It's like if I was sitting in a crowded park, a pizza delivery guy showed up, looked around, saw me, and said, "Clearly, you must have been the guy who ordered these 3 extra-large stuffed crust meat lovers pizzas." If that happened, I'd assume it'd be time to start a diet. Just as soon as I finished those pizzas. But Biden just can't get a break. In an interview with CNN, ex-Obama advisor David Axelrod said Biden would lose the presidential race as he hasn't come to terms with the fact he can't beat Trump and he can't beat Father Time. Meanwhile, Trump is convinced he can beat Biden not only in the election, but in golf. He challenged the current president to a match and said if he loses, he'll give $1 million to charity. It might be best for Biden to sit this one out, though. After his debate performance, it's probably not best to compete in another contest that exposes your handicap. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not mocking Biden for being old or any physical ailments he might have. Father Time comes for us all. The issue is clinging on to power when it could potentially harm not just your party, but your country. Fortunately, Joe Biden is humble and self-aware, so I'm sure he'll do what's best for everyone.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention.
Biden does have his supporters in the Democratic Party, like the Congressional Black Caucus chair, Stephen Horsford. Why is he backing Biden? Obviously, it's because of his lifetime of public service, his impeccable record, and of course, most importantly of all,
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
that soundbite is the gift that just keeps on giving. For the rest of the House Democrats, Biden sent out a letter asking for their support in his election efforts. In it, he says, "I have heard the concerns the people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I can respond to all this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. Ridiculous. There's only one man who can beat Trump. America Uncovered's officially endorsed presidential candidate, Chris Christie. Sure, he dropped out months ago and is threatening legal action against us, but if I've learned anything from Chris Christie, it's to never give up. Or was that Rocky? But if Biden does drop out or is reelected and doesn't make it all 4 years of his next term, the next most likely Democratic president would be Vice President Kamala Harris. And a lot of people aren't happy with that prospect, like the New York Post, who says she would be the country's first DEI president. CNN responded that saying that is what bigotry looks like. And I agree. She was hired exclusively for her merit, and not just because Biden was pressured into choosing a black woman as his running mate. And there certainly isn't video evidence of Biden literally calling Harris a DEI hire, right?
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country. And it starts at the top with the vice president.
Okay. Well, so what? I mean, it's not like hiring someone for their diversity rather than thoroughly vetting them has ever come back to bite the Biden administration before, or more specifically, steal their luggage twice. Harris wouldn't be the most popular replacement. She's consistently received abysmally low approval ratings. In all this discussion, the one person not talking about Joe Biden is Kamala Harris. Is it because she's trying to be respectful of her running mate and commander-in-chief? Or is it because she knows staying quiet is a sound strategy when you're almost as bad of a public speaker as Joe Biden?
The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
Nailed it. She has big giving a book presentation on a book you've never read before energy. And I assume that book was The Significance of the Passage of Time. So our probable options for who will be president in 2025 are Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. You know, we've been joking for months now about how we're officially endorsing Chris Christie for president, but with these options, we're not joking anymore. Keep hope alive, everybody. Before you decide to give up on humanity and date AI instead, you should probably watch this video on Detroit Become Human and see why that's a bad idea. Check it out on our other channel, Gamers Unbeaten. America Uncovered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support us on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode, and you can set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.